What's good, beautiful people? It's your girl, Ashley Janae. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you want to listen to this podcast ad free and without interruption, head on over to Anchor, Spotify, Google, or Breaker, and you can hear the full uninterrupted episode. Don't forget to smash that like button, turn on your post notifications, and share this video with a friend. Enjoy. All right, so welcome everybody to the Alkemst podcast. Today with me is my friend Osa. Osa, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ashley, thank you so much for having me on the Alchemist podcast. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you with us. The reason why I wanted you to be on this podcast was because I think you have a very interesting story. So, can you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
All right, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, my full name is Osara Obaseki, and I go by Osa or Osa the Healer. I'm a artist. I'm a father. I am a lot of things. I don't really care to list, but I just a liver of life, man. I'm here just living this experience. Most of it spiritual, some of it ratchet, and just trying to establish the best balance. So
Yeah.
happy to be here. I'm always happy to share, and I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So let's start off with your name. What That's not a everyday name. We don't hear that all the time. It reminds me of Asar or the Osiris story from ancient Kemet. So can you tell me about your name?
Yeah, so Osaraten Obaseki. So I'm from Nigeria. My family's from Nigeria, and the tribe is Edo, Edo. And so Osaraten, that's my given name. That means God is my strength. So that that's a blessing. One of the greatest blessings I've had is my name. So God is my strength. That's kind of what pulls me through. Whenever I'm going through something tough or difficult, I'm glad that I have that to hold on to. So it's always a good reminder that God is my strength, and so that carries me through any kind of trials and tribulations that I've been through thus far, and hopefully forever.
Absolutely. I think that's something extremely important, having that foundation of an identity, knowing who you are from the beginning, even as something as simple as a name. I think in our culture now, we don't necessarily value that as much now as we used to, but making sure your children had names that they could live into, you know what I mean? Something to hold on to. And that
Absolutely.
that piece is so important. But before we get into that part, I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, things like that.
Yeah. So I was born in it is a weird story, but I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, but I was conceived in Nigeria. So my parents they lived in Nigeria, and I that's where they were living. But my mother conveniently scheduled a trip to visit her sister in Atlanta, and I was born in Atlanta. And so immediately after that, I went back to Nigeria, spent like the first 5 years of my life there. And then I came back and I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. And
Wow.
so after I graduated high school, I went to Morgan State University where we met. Hey, go Bears.
Go Bears.
I lived in Baltimore for a while. And then now I live in Washington, D.C. So I try to, I just try to make the best of whatever it is where I'm at.
Absolutely. What was that like? Do you have any memories of living in Nigeria that you can kind of contrast to living here in the States?
Yeah, I have some. I have a few. One of the most powerful memories that I have is of my great grandmother. She used to make egusi soup, which is
Oh,
like,
so good.
yeah, it's so good. I know. It was like, but like I could actually remember, like I could still taste it. Like it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the most fondest memories that I have. That's the only memory I have of her. But then also too, I remember I remember living a life of privilege, actually, which is kind of weird. Like I remember we had a nice little duplex apartment joint, and I remember running around that joint, and we lived in a high rise, and I remember I used to sit on the balcony and just I don't know what I was doing, thinking about life or something,
Right.
and just a general peace. And then when I came here, this is crazy. When I came to America, sharp contrast. I thought Americans were poor. You know what I'm saying? I did because like, we got on a plane and, my parents were like, yeah, we're going to America. And I was like, okay, why are we leaving? But okay. And we got here and, what I'm saying? We came to a raggedy 2-bedroom apartment with roaches. And I was like, yo,
Oh, wow.
American people are poor. And then like, I would go to school and then they would show us these pictures of Africa with these kids with flies on their face. And I was like, where is that? Like, I didn't, you know what I'm saying? I never saw that. So I was just like, y'all saying Africans are poor. Ew. We had to take the bus, you know what I'm saying? And we was struggling. My parents sacrificed. Like, it's crazy, right? Because I still don't understand the depth of why my parents left. But think about it, like when I think about it, it's like whatever was going on in Nigeria, they felt like it would be better to raise Black children in America. Let that sink in for a second, and my parents, they weren't green. They weren't like, yo, America's paved with gold and stuff like that. They weren't green. They ain't come from huts and shit like that. Excuse my language. Can we cuss?
You can say whatever you want to say.
So, but they brought us here. So it was a real interesting like contrast. And I think much of my life I dealt with kind of that, I don't want to say identity crisis is a strong way to say it, but the pushing of those cultures against each other, where I came from, like a rich Nigerian culture and then into an American culture. And I'm kind of stuck in the middle because I didn't grow up in Nigeria really, and I don't speak any of my native languages. I speak English, and that's how, like an American. But also to Americans, it was like, well, you're not really American, you're African. So yeah, I was always like in this nowhere land. And so I've been kind of forced to build up that identity, kind of like a hybrid identity. You know how, I think it's W.E.B. Du Bois, right, who talked about the dual consciousness of Africans in America, or Black people in America, where they have to be American and then also have to be Black. Well, so I think that I had like to wrestle with the triple consciousness. We're trying to be American, trying to be Black, and then still trying to honor myself as a Nigerian. So it's very interesting growing up and how I perceive things today. That I give thanks to all that makes me up.
Right. Are you getting feedback? Every now and then I'm getting feedback. Like if I laugh, I can hear it in my headphones.
Nope.
Turn your speaker down just a little bit, as long as you can hear me, but just in case.
Okay.
But I think that's amazing because there are these stereotypes on both sides of what it looks like to be an African or what it's like to be an American. And then, like you said, being a Black person in this country. And there's a little bit of a divide I see between Africans, even first generation Africans, and the Black people of the diaspora that were born here. Mm-hmm. Not in so much that there's just a clash, but there's a cultural difference. Right. And one of my favorite economists, Mr. Thomas Sowell, he did extensive research into the cultural differences between African and Caribbean families and then Black American families here in the United States when it came to dissecting racism, disparities, and things like that, finding that people that come from Africa or from Caribbean communities here to America have a much tighter family set, a different set of values, and a different type of cooperation, right, when it comes to building businesses and working together. And I found that to be so interesting. It's a really good deep dive if you ever get a chance to look at that. Do you find things that are in contrast like that between your family and other families that you see here that might lend itself to kind of like the climates that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Not really, because I be finding similarities. We all Africans.
Right.
To me, I think like a lot of those values, you'll see ironically, like you'll see a lot of those similar values for like family. Like I think a lot of Black people are kind of conservative by nature, in which that they're trying to conserve family ideals, values, morals, and principles.
Right.
And I see a lot more similarities than differences. I think the differences are like maybe on the surface, but really when I kind of really assess it, I see like a lot of similarities, you know, like in the deep Southern communities, even in the hoods, you know what I'm saying, in Black communities, again, you see those values of family much in the same way that you'll see in Africa, you know, in certain African communities or Nigerian communities, to me, specifically to me.
Yeah.
You know, even the way that we organize ourselves, like into groups, right? It's not like in Nigeria, we don't organize ourselves around being Black, right? Everyone's Black. So, like we don't do that. Much in the same way, in the Black community, people don't organize themselves around being Black, right? Everyone's Black. So what we have is our separation, if there's any, you know, it's into groups and families and tribes and gangs and stuff like that, or blocks or hood. It's based on what we value. You know,
Right.
this side of town we value that side of town we value that, and so we're different families, and we either cooperate or don't cooperate based on what we believe. And so it's the same thing, like, you know, in Nigeria we have different tribes. You know, it's the same thing as like different hoods in on this side of the Atlantic. And I see a lot of the similarities. I'd love to read the report though, to really, you know what I mean? That's Thomas Sowell brother. I've heard of him too. Somebody, as a matter of fact, somebody was just telling me about
Really?
him like yesterday. I was just talking
His
about, they were like,
differences he points out are more so when it comes to education and
oh,
a strong sense of work ethic, cooperative economics, because there's an idea that, and we're not going to get real political, but there's an idea that in this country, because of racism, um, you're guaranteed to be oppressed in certain ways, right? Well, the report, and he did this back in the 70s, I think, or 80s. And the report went over, and he has a book about it, talked about how if you're someone looking at an African or a Caribbean person, you don't necessarily know where they're from if they're not talking, right? If you're just basing it on skin color. So if we all, quote unquote, experience the same level of oppression based on skin color, what he found was that people from Caribbean homes and African homes, financially and socially, do exponentially much better than Black Americans who are born here because of small things like family structure, living together, the hard, strong push for work. I have a few Nigerian friends, and it's like we were only allowed to be a doctor, right? You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, and school was everything. Versus here, it's kind of like, for me, I feel privileged in that way because I came from a family where education was important. I come from a family of educators, but I also had friends that graduated high school with me at the same time who couldn't read. You know what I'm saying?
right,
And that could be to the public school system. It could be to politics. We can point our fingers in a lot of different places, but even just looking at family structures, I thought it was really interesting because it's like, I do kind of have different conversations with my friends who are Haitian or who are Nigerian or who are from Ghana, you know what I mean? Or even my friends Jamaican, like education and family is a bigger piece.
It is. And that was a struggle for me, right? Because like when I was in school, for example, like high school, whatever, it was like, I was like an average student, like a B student, right? But like at home, that was like, I was trash. Yeah. I was like, what are you doing? And we're like, why are you speak English? Why do you have a C in English? Like, I was just like, I don't know.
Because average here is a C minus.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then, but then like in school, or whatever, socially, it's like, oh, you're like a 3.0 student, like you're good, like the bar was so dang low,
right?
And with my family it was so much higher, so I was always like in this weird place. And so I definitely noticed like the education piece, and also collectively, because I remember recently one time I was in 7-Eleven and, somebody was trying to get something to eat or something. So I got them whatever, some chicken wings, whatever they got in 7-Eleven. Got them something to eat. And the Ethiopian brother, he was like, yeah, he said, back home, he was like, yeah, even though we're poor, he was like people don't go hungry. He said because the community kind of comes around and supports, like people, you don't got people begging for something to eat,
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, I could tell that. Now again, I grew up here, so this is all I really see.
Right.
So that's why I haven't done any like extensive research, but yeah, I've noticed some of the those subtle, well, they may not be that subtle, but some of those
Right, right.
differences. Yeah, we all got to go to school and be this. And you want to be a musician? What? Shut up. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, I get it.
Right. It's interesting that someone just mentioned Thomas Sowell to you. Uh, very amazing brother. He's been around for a long time. Thankfully, he's still with us. He's in his late 90s.
Oh wow.
But he's still here with us. He just celebrated his birthday in June. So definitely somebody to check out,
Definitely now. This is the second confirmation in like 24 hours.
Listen, there you go. That synchronicity. So since we're on there, tell me about what you do. What's your field or fields? Tell me about what you do.
Yeah. So I guess professionally, so I'm a web developer, and so it's actually funny how I got into that is because so after I finished at Morgan, I graduated with a bachelor's in business administration, and but I was like trying to like do music. I was like, oh man, I want to sell my music and I want to sell my beats. I was like, man, I need a website, and I ain't have nobody to like pay to do it, or I didn't really understand how the whole thing worked.
Right.
So I went online and I just kind of read up. I studied. I took like a little cheap class or something like that, and then I set up my website and I knew how to do it. And I was like, oh wow. And I started applying for jobs, and somebody took a chance on me. And I ain't never looked back. It was like the greatest skill that I've ever learned because the little investment I made, $100 or whatever, I done made hand over fist. So
Right.
so I got into web development like through music, and then also music has just also been a passion of mine. So I've done rapping and performing, and then also align myself with community projects along the way. So I I remember well at Morgan we started Brother to Brother.
I remember.
Yeah, which is the mentoring program with the boys, right? And
Yeah.
so shout out to Munir Bahar, that's the big brother right there. And we were doing that for years. I mean, it's still going now. It's called the Core Health Institute. Shout out to the Core Health Institute, which is now a center over in East Baltimore.
I've seen.
Yeah, it's really dope. It took 4 bandos and worked on 4 abandoned buildings.
I know what bandos are, but for the people in the back.
Right, in the back, right. He took 4 abandoned buildings, turned it into a fitness center and a dojo right smack in the middle of the hood, and teaches karate classes there. And he's still working. He's still going. So I've worked with him a lot. I'm in DC now, so not as present there, but I still try to support. There's other ways to support. So that whole experience though, just that whole 10-year 300-man march was part of that, which was another dope kind of experience.
Well, take me through that. Start from the beginning. Like, take me through. Tell me what this organization is, and why you're a part of it, and then you can tell me a little bit about what you guys have done.
Yeah, sure. So, well, now in its present iteration, the Core Health Institute is a community organization, nonprofit program, that's designed to work with youth. The umbrella is called Keys Development. Keys being keep encouraging youth to succeed. So it started in about 2002, and I think I came along in 2003. That was the Brother to Brother program at Morgan, which is a mentoring program and for young African American males. And then that developed or transformed into the Core Health program, focused on kind of fitness and health. There was the Core Kids program that was from that. And again, at the time when I got involved, I was at Morgan and just looking for brotherhood and and men who were just trying to do something constructive in the community. I mean,
Right.
I was entertaining the idea of a fraternity, and because I watched a different world growing up, you know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
I was at the HBCU
And G5G.
and all that, right? You know what I mean? So I was entertaining that. However, I didn't see what I wanted to see. So, I found Brother to Brother, and Munir Bahar was a strong dude. So I was like, oh yeah, now I'm gonna jump on this bandwagon. And we were just doing great things, real things. I mean, we had actual boys in our program, and you could see us, and we were visible, and we were present.
Right. It was tangible.
Yeah, it was tangible, right? And I felt it, and I was really, inspired. And we were young. We were boys. We were,
Right.
19, 20.
Teenagers.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like we were boys, but we did it, and that challenge helped me grow just exponentially. So we just kept pushing. Later on, after we, started focusing on the health and the fitness aspects, there was this call from whatever the universe to address the violence in the city. So I wish I had the years better. I think it was like 2013 in Baltimore. There was this crazy spike in violence. And with all this going on in the community, not a whole lot of people were addressing it. So that's where the spawn of the 300 Men March started, to address the violence that's happening in our communities, to be a force against that violence. And that's when we led the first march. I think it was 2013. Don't quote me, but 2013 led the first march of men across the city of Baltimore, all the way up and down North Avenue in Baltimore, which is like, for the DC folks, it's like Georgia Avenue. You shut down the whole.
I used to live right at Penn North.
Oh yeah, right. Yep.
Right by the mark.
Yeah. So we went all the way from Hilton to Milton and back. And it was just a strong display, which was, fully supported by the city, supported by the Baltimore City Police Department, and a lot of other folks in the community, and different activists and people who wanted to address it. Then we turned that into a more concentrated effort, and where we focused on the different neighborhoods, and we would do walks through each of the neighborhoods, the most dangerous neighborhoods in Baltimore City. Every Friday night, we did that for like three summers straight. Every Friday night, we would, just walk through the community. Again, it wasn't no community.
To have the presence.
Yeah, just the presence, right? It wasn't no policing. We weren't telling nobody to stop selling drugs or to pull up their pants, nothing. We were just the presence. And that was so powerful. That was absolutely one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in my life. To see the look on children's faces when 30, 40, 50, 60 Black men just walk through their community and say what's up to them. You could see the look in their eyes and their faces, like they were seeing real life superheroes, and like, and the elderly people who were just thankful, just to see us and just to see us. That's it. We weren't doing a whole lot. We were just walking. We might stop and toss a football around or what, but just that presence of men in the community. And I need to say, because when people hear 300 Men March, they're like, well, what about the women? So the women were hugely integral part of organizing, handling logistics, all of that. So the women were important to the movement too. But as we all know, and as a lot of people say, the women have been holding things down in the Black community. And so this was an opportunity and a place for us to step up. And it was really a strong movement. However, those things are, in these days and times, are kind of difficult to maintain, because it requires a lot of discipline. It requires letting go of one's ego. It requires a lot of organization. It requires consistency. It requires dedication, so on and so forth. And it's cool and stuff. Folks can do it when the cameras are on and all that stuff and it's popping, but once all that goes away, it becomes a lot more challenging. So then the effort kind of became more concentrated into the Core Health Institute, which is what we see now, which is a development of the center,
with the dojo.
Yeah, the dojo and fitness center, and then now it's turning on the same block talking about Bob the Block. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All this stuff we be talking about in the community and all the stuff, what we need to do as Black people. I mean, I be seeing my brother do it. You know, like buy up the block. He got another property down that same block.
I saw.
All that stuff we talk about, you know what I'm saying? I be seeing it happen. All the stuff that we don't think that can happen, or we saying we need somebody else to do it for us. I mean, I've been seeing it. When we did the 300-man march,
Yeah, it happens.
I've seen police move out of our way on everything. I have that experience. Like I can say that. I can say for a fact that when the community steps up and does what it needs to do, police gonna move out the way. We won't, if we manage our children.
You're not a threat.
Yeah, they're not even a threat. They thanked us. Actually, like they gave us awards. They were like, yo, we appreciate y'all. When we did a walk from Baltimore all the way to DC. Like 30 of us. We walked all the way from Baltimore. And when I tell you, actually, every single jurisdiction of police department from Baltimore County to Howard County to PG County, you know, and then PG County got all type of cops, College Park cops, Greenbelt, all the way into DC, and the DC police escorted us all the way down to. We didn't plan this.
Wow.
We didn't plan this. They just got word, and they knew. You know, by this time, folks kind of heard about the things that we were doing, and a couple CNN interviews, and da. So folks knew kind of what we was doing, and all the police departments supported it. So I gotta give them. You know, I got my issues with the police, but I give them respect because they're the ones who are responding to all our children going crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm glad to have had that experience, and I'm glad that and it's made me see a lot more of what's really, really possible. You know,
that's the important part. What's possible. It's two things that you mentioned that I want to touch on. The first thing being, well, I want to talk about the relations between the community and the police. And then also I want to talk about the role, and I use that term loosely, of men and women and how it's okay for it to be different. Because right now we live in a society where we go so hard for equality in a way that there is this idea or argument, not so much in our community, but just on a larger scale, that there's no difference between men and women, that we're all the same and should all be doing the same. And I feel like there's so much that's lost in seeing our differences. Like, I'm not going to fight a man. I don't want to fight anybody, period. But just for the simple fact, me saying that he is stronger than me, I don't feel belittled.
Right.
In that, as a woman, I have strength. I know I'm strong. And I don't think me recognizing that your body is built differently makes me less of a person. But it's a hard road we're at right now, where it's instead of valuing the differences in each other, this push for equality, like, well, we need to be involved in. I think it's a good thing that men have their place and they can step up and be that example. And then women, they have their places and roles where they can step up and be the example. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be one overtaking the other just because it's different. You know, like, can you talk about that a little bit? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think this idea that men should do the same thing as women and women do the same thing, I think it's so stupid. I'm sorry.
I get it.
I think it's so asinine and it makes no sense. I don't want that. I wouldn't want my woman walking around. I don't want my sister, my auntie walking around these streets with these dangerous conditions. I wouldn't send no woman off the roof. I would be grateful if I didn't have to do that, right? That's cool. There's other ways that you could keep society going. Women are the most important part of existence. They're like the most important. You don't just send them off into war zones. You could if they can. Women have been warriors for centuries, but like, that's not what we're here for. That we got to take the L's, and we got to, you know what I mean, take a spear to the chest, whatever we got to do. So the thing is, though, I think part of that is, if I may be bold enough to say, is that we just lost our connection to God and the natural way of life. I mean, you would never hear a doe, a female deer, complaining that she doesn't have antlers. She ain't got to fight nobody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna see no male penguin complain that he has to sit on the egg while the woman goes and she goes and hunts. You better sit on that egg, Mr. Penguin, and you just,
Right.
that's what you do. You sit on the egg and you make sure that, because the egg, the life, that's important, you is assigned to sit on the egg, but we don't understand our assignments anymore because we've lost connection to, I think, a higher power, a higher self, or even just nature. We ain't got to get all higher. Just look around,
Right. I hear
So
you.
establishing, I think having a balance is more important than having equality. Like I don't want to do the same things that women do.
Neither
I
do
don't
I.
want I don't
I
want
don't
to
do the same.
I don't want to have to carry around a baby in my
No, you
stomach.
don't.
No, no, y'all got it. You good. This the fact. Look, I'm happy with my role. Roles are really important, even in a family structure. And I think the other thing with roles, people get really scared of roles. Here's the thing. Roles may have looked like something in the past, but we still have the power to recreate those roles.
Absolutely.
Like having a role isn't a bad thing. A gender role, it's not a bad thing. But you can decide what your role is. I think that's really where I'm at. We're gonna have roles. If I get married again or whatever, we got roles. Just point blank period. I got a role as a man, and we can specify what that is. But I got a role, and my partner who I choose, the woman, she's got a role, and she's got to do it, and that's okay. There's nothing oppressive really about those things, and so allowing and having an understanding for that space will keep us in line. I feel,
It's
and
kind of like barriers and guardrails sort of on the
yeah,
street.
yeah. I'm not gonna have no woman fight for me, get into a fight. I'm gonna send my woman out. No,
Like,
man.
that's my role.
Right,
Right.
right. I'll do that. I'll do that part. But you just make sure we're good at home. Like make sure I can come home. You can bandage me up, or whatever. So I think roles are okay, and I don't think that it's oppressive, and I don't think it's oppressive to have a role or to have an assignment or whatever. Being a woman is, in my opinion, the most powerful force on this earth. And so when women believe these narratives that like they're oppressed, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, I feel like,
I'm not oppressed.
yeah, right, you know what I mean? I mean, I feel like women can like control the elements of the earth and like the wind and
Facts.
rainstorms. And then so when you tell me you worried about a man's boot on your neck, I'm looking at you like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's real. For me, I believe women should be empowered, but like not, it's not gonna come from you trying to be like a man. We ain't nothing. We're here
Yeah.
to submit. I feel like men are here to submit to women, but women have to, want that for themselves. Don't want to believe that men are oppressing you, because it can go a lot further, if you tell yourself a different story. And the stories we tell ourselves ultimately become the stories that play out.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of our struggles, and I was talking to a friend yesterday about this, I think a lot of our struggles in areas that we consider to be oppression, whether it's men and women, whether it's black and white, whatever it is, I think historically there was a need to move the needle forward, right? I think there were sects of people. I don't necessarily see it as much in the black community, but I know in other sects of people, there was this domineering type of faction, right, in certain households, right, where there was a lot of domestic abuse, and there was, you can't own your own home and things like that, to where it kept people that weren't in loving situations trapped in those bad situations, right?
Absolutely.
So I see the need. Same thing with when we look at racism. There was a time in our country, and arguably still now, but more so historically with our ancestors and our grandparents, where systems were set in place specifically to keep you away from wealth, to keep you away from equity, to keep you away from certain things. And so they were needed to push the needle forward. And anything that's living changes and evolves. So I think in any good relationship, you are going to set your own kind of like roles, like you said. People shy away from that word.
I know.
And I get it, because no one wants to feel stuck in a
Yeah.
box, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you have a partner that you're with and you say, hey, babe, like I can make this money, or I can make sure the kids are good, or whatever, that's the roles you set up for yourself. You play those roles. But I think sometimes we get lost in trying to do everything ourselves. And
Yes.
it's like, I don't need you. And I feel like we definitely need each other. I think that
Yeah.
creates that yin and that yang, that
Yeah.
harmony um, in our communities. And I think losing that in so many ways is part of how we've lost our ways. Like, our family structures are different. It used to be I
Right.
could go outside and all my neighbors knew my mom. So you can't
Mm.
act up, because the
Yeah.
village
Yeah. The
will get you
village.
together, or will whoop
Exactly.
your tail. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly.
So I definitely hear you. I know that there was a time, from my perspective, that we did need to move the needle, but
Hmm.
now, like, I've never considered myself oppressed. I've definitely experienced racism and sexism in very tangible ways, but I've
Yeah.
never considered myself, even now, to be oppressed because I don't do certain things that men do. It's just something interesting to think about when I think
Yeah.
about solutions in our community. Like,
Right.
how do we get forward? And I
Yeah.
think working together, and you do this and I'll do this, and then we come together, that
Right.
can help us more than it can hurt us sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I
that's what I
agree.
was thinking about. Also,
Word.
you mentioned the police in the community, right?
Oh yeah.
I think that's another one of those things that has a lot of pieces, a lot of components.
Right.
And so I think for the majority of us, we can all say that we've had a negative experience in some way.
Right.
And not just because you're Black, or not just because you're a woman or a man, but because police are people. And
Yeah.
so you're going to deal with people.
Right.
But how important do you think it is for um, our communities and the police to have a working relationship? Like, how important is that, and why?
Yeah. Right. That's a good question. Maybe the why is important first, right? Why would you even want that? Well, it depends on what outcomes do we want. Yeah, like me personally, I want a safer community. Like
Yeah.
I want a safer community. So, why then, should we work together? Well, yeah, because I want to see a safer community. And uh, the way that it can't happen in isolation, like the way that it is now. we can't have we can't blame we can't blame everything on everyone else. I think that the thing is,
That's
BLM
a
for
hard pill to swallow for people.
yeah, it is. I know. And it just be like, it's like we've gotten to the point where like nothing is like in our control. This is like, come on, like certain things. We didn't have to. Trust me, I've got negative experiences with police. Like I've been, arrested for some BS and had to spend a couple nights in jail, more than once. I've been beat up by them a little bit, it's like, so I get it. All that.
Yeah.
I understand the historical context of police. I understand profiling and all of that. I've been subject to almost everything short of being shot, right? I don't know. That's the last one. That's the last straw.
And we're not going to get that one.
Yeah, we not even go put that out into the universe. However, I feel I've also learned, like again through my experiences from 300 Man March, same thing, kind of what you just said. Like they're just people, and they're assigned to do things that are really, really, really uncomfortable. Like they have to clean up dead bodies and tell somebody's mother that their daughter or their son got killed. Like that's a lot, and I can't even imagine even to be in a position, whether the person is racist or have bias or all that. I mean, but just even to be in a position where you have to shoot somebody, what does that do to the mind? So, how do we create spaces or ways that this doesn't have to be the case? That's important for me, and building that relationship. We can work together, or we may not even really need to. my thing is, there's a couple of things. If we create communities, which we can do on our own, we can do that on. There's really nothing stopping us from creating communities where our children don't feel like they need to pick up guns. I don't know no young dudes who be carrying guns because they're worried about getting shot by police. I don't know. I can't really think of any.
Right. I don't either.
Yeah, I can think of quite a few.
And everybody I know carries guns.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But quite a few are worried about some dudes down the street.
It's never about police.
Yeah, none of them really talk about police. So we've already got that narrative. We've already got that messed up. All of these people thinking that like these young boys are in fear of police. We're not. We know that they come with the territory of being here. We know that. We're very clear. But we ain't walking around in fear, and it's really exaggerated to this point. We're worried about the safety of ourselves. And we as a community, because this is not the cop's job, it's not the mayor's job to make our communities feel like places where we can just walk. I mean, they can help. They're here to help and they're here to support, but they can only do but so much. You can't ask them to defund the police if the homicide rate is going up in your city. It doesn't work like that. This is the law of supply and demand. This is a capitalist society, supply and demand. So if the demand for police is high based on the homicide rate, the supply is just going to come right behind it.
Right.
And so if we reduce the demand first on our own, then we can have justification to say, hey, we don't need that many police in our neighborhood anymore. We and we have good relations. The other thing too is like give credit where credit is due. We don't really do that enough. If some of us had decent police departments, would we acknowledge it? Again, I'm not no pro police per se or whatever, or anything.
Right, I get it.
Yeah, but like I be looking at the stuff, I live in DC, so like I be looking at the stuff the DC Police Department, like I was just on their Twitter feed the other day. I was looking at the stuff, I was like, oh, they have engagement with the community. Oh, wow, they have community days. Oh, wow, they deliver food to people. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I mean, what would it look like? The mayor, you talk about police reform, the mayor of DC was like one of the very early adopters of the cameras, right? The body cameras. Also, she reduced the time frame from which they need to release it just this summer, and then it went from like, I don't know, I think it was like a couple of weeks to like 5 days, right? And so then when the incident happens, then we're like, oh, we need police. When the incident happens somewhere completely different, Kenosha, Wisconsin, wherever
right.
that is, then it's like, oh, well, DC police are the what? Like we talk about the humanity of the victims and humanity of this person. Now, everybody but the people who are responsible for cleaning up the mess. What about their humanity? And so seeing the humanity, I think, will help us build certain bridges. But we got to do a lot of work on ourselves, on our parts first. They've already been in the streets trying to protect. They got to respond. Like, I hear gunshots. I live in Southeast. This is gunshots all the time, like all the time. I got to I got a 2-year-old son. When I'm trying to put him to sleep at night, and he's, Daddy, what's that sound? I got to tell him it's fireworks. Come on, man. Mayor didn't do that. The police didn't do that. So, I think if we keep blaming everybody else, it's going to make it difficult for us to incorporate the people who have the same, if we have the same mission to reduce crime and reduce the violence and create a better community, I think at least half, I would like to say more than half of the police would support that. I don't know.
Right. I think this gets into a hard area for people, because like I said, so many of us have had the negative experiences, right? Yeah. And I think what we're more hurt about, and rightfully so, is the extreme aggressiveness, the getting hemmed up for no reason, when they stop you, take your bag, dump it out on the ground, and then throw it down and then walk away. And it's that feeling of like, you ain't nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then I think because of that emotion, our community sometimes is easily swayed when they say, like, even have celebrities talking about you're being hunted in the street. And while I understand the frustration, that's not a true statement.
It's
That's
not at
not
all.
a true statement. And I mentor kids in my neighborhood, and we don't hear gunshots all the time in my part of the neighborhood. But with my security company, they have my security company has it so on the app you can look and see if there is crime in your neighborhood, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
when I look on there every day, literally, there is something like 4 or 5 reports of gunshots here, gunshots here. Literally, just 6 or 7 days ago, down the street from my house, literally down the street from my house, somebody was murdered in front of the store.
Mm.
3 days before that, going the other way, a different corner store, somebody got shot down there, right? I
Right.
went with one of my clients for a walk, and he points to me to the corner where one of his friends was murdered. And this boy is 13.
Right.
So it's like when you actually are out here and you're doing the work and you live in these areas and you're talking to the people, it's a very different story than what you get from the media. And
Right.
I think we're at this place where we allow other people to kind of lead us and like put our head on the swivel and say, that's your problem over there, or
Yeah.
that's your problem
No, yeah,
over there.
that's a big issue for me because I don't like that because we are hurt in our communities and we are experiencing a lot of pain and like people just be coming in from out of nowhere and try to tell us, like out of is this young brother named Dion K. He got shot recently by the cops here. Again, we don't have that many police shootings in DC.
Mm,
No. And so he got shot, unfortunately, which is sucks and it's terrible and it's sad. And however, allegedly, he definitely had a gun. He had a gun, and so, but allegedly, he had other priors and things like that. And so, you know, then a bunch of people who come from wherever, not here, come to now. You want to come to this part of DC? You ain't been over here all summer long. Why would
mm.
we have a 14% increase, 12, 13, 14, double-digit increase in murders this year, homicides this year? Y'all weren't over here, but now this one cop shoots a kid, and now y'all want to be over here and try to tell us like, yeah, we need police reform. Like, yes, at a higher level, but like really at a really smaller. I mean, I don't want to say smaller, but a closer level, micro level. We need better infrastructure in our community. Like and so we can't have people coming in and it's easy to get us come into this community and like, yeah, we should be mad at police. That's easy.
Yes.
Everybody can jump on that bandwagon easily. Yo, we
And get
should be
someone to
mad.
follow.
Yeah, and that's not fair. And I really don't like seeing that. All these protesters coming from nowhere and da 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 da, and then getting people all stirred up and angry. But when y'all leave and go back to wherever it is that's not here, we still got to deal with this mess.
Right.
Y'all done got us riled up. That's why I don't even like certain spaces. I don't even want to talk about race because you get me all mad, and then I got to walk around being black. You ain't done nothing for me, but we had a discussion. I don't need that. We talk about it all the time, but
Absolutely.
what are the modalities that are going to help us deal with the situation in a healthy manner?
Yeah. So from there, because um, I hear a lot of times people say, well, there's a lack of leadership in the community. I don't really think that is true. I
Mm-hmm.
think there are leaders. I think it's harder for them to be found because they're not going to get the TV time like a BLM, right?
Right.
BLM has such a huge platform now, and I don't think rightfully so. I love the idea,
Yeah.
and the outcry that was created, like Black Lives Matter. I think it was created as a way to affirm us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you see something over and over, it's disheartening, it hurts, it creates fear. So it's like, listen, your life matters. I think it was a cry from Black people to other Black people, your life matters, Black Lives Matter. And then of course to others, like, hey, my life matters. Don't treat me a certain way, which is valid. That's all very valid. But I think that really brilliant idea was quickly co-opted by politics and money.
Yep.
And so you now have leaders of this organization and the actual organization itself that is putting out tenets that don't actually empower or create solutions for our community, especially
Exactly.
if the only focus is people in the LGBTQ community, of which I'm a
Right.
part of,
Right.
or when it comes to police violence or what they call state violence. And it's like, yes, all of those things matter. We're
Yeah.
not going to pretend like racism doesn't exist. We're not going to
Right.
pretend like there aren't some assholes on the police force that
Right.
make a wrong move.
Right.
But when I'm thinking about the people that I mentor, right? And like what, to your point, what you were saying, our biggest issues and the things that are taking us up out of this world so fast um, are in-house, so to
Yeah.
speak. So from your perspective and the different things that you've been involved in, what are some of the solutions that you've been involved in? And what are some other things that you're working on right now? Like, what are some things that you've done to better the community, better yourself? And what are some other things that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in addition to the Core Health Institute and the 300-Man March, I was actually co-founder of an organization called the Sanctuaries, which is no longer around, but it's is an art community in DC, and it was intentionally racially and religiously diverse. And so the original intent was to inspire others and encourage others to share their art, to share their story through various artistic means. Now, for me, the greatest value that I got out of that is one, just going into it, right? It challenged me in a lot of ways to get together and create with people who were completely different from me, right? That's how you really know who you are. And that's how you really affirm, for me, that's how I really affirmed who I am. Because like, it's easy for me to be in a space where I'm comfortable and say, well, I'm this and I'm that. But what does that look like? How do I show up in other spaces? And what does this look like in a group of people that may not look like me, that may not think like me, that may not have the same whatever orientations as I do? Like, that's important for us to really, all right, does what I believe make sense? Is this applicable to life other ways? And so I was challenged in all of those ways. And so then the next piece for me was then trying to organize those people, organize groups of people that don't think like me, that don't believe. Oh man, that was the most challenging experiences of my life. It made
Yeah.
me realize the coldness. I'm cold. I'm a cold dude, man. I come from, I had to be black, grow up here being a black man. I realize I'm kind of cold. You know what I'm saying? Like, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's a good thing to understand, right? And it's not that I'm moving away from the idea that things are inherently good or bad, right?
Absolutely. I'm
It's a
there.
powerful, I'm telling you, it's a powerful way to live your life. Things aren't necessarily inherently good or bad. It's
Right.
what you decide to do with these things and these traits and aspects of yourself that you're learning and understanding. So one thing for me was that to take it helped me also take myself from a victim mentality to a victor mentality, right? And that looks a whole lot different. It looks a whole lot different in my personal life, and then
Facts.
just even socially, how we interact and engage. So as we were working on campaigns, different like social justice campaigns. See, I didn't really know what social justice was and all that stuff. I kind of got
It's a brand new concept in so many ways, and it's taken on a
yeah.
life of its own.
Yeah, it has. And like I kind of got sucked in ways I didn't really know what was going on. But I learned a lot. And that's the thing. Like I learned a whole lot because I didn't really understand none of it at first. I was like, what? Social justice, it sounds like an oxymoron to me. Like, so isn't justice social inherently? Like, why do you got to put social in front of it? Like, but so again, putting ourselves in situations where we can learning about other experiences. Like I got to it's kind of indirectly, but I got to work with some youth from Palestine. And I don't really know much about, I've always heard about Palestine and Israel, and they don't get along, and I've like kind of heard the stuff. But interacting with the youth, I was like, and they were teenagers, and they were talking about the stuff that is, police pointing guns at them and they're being profiled. And I was like, whoa, this sounds very familiar. And it helped me to identify with a struggle that's happening for all types of people all around the world, and realizing that, like, all right, maybe I don't, maybe it's not just me experiencing these things. And so finding connections, we have to, it's more valuable for me to find connections. That's what I learned. Finding connections. We always focus on our differences. Well, I'm different, or I'm a part of this oppressed group, and the oppression Olympics, so to speak, that they say.
Right.
That's not helpful to me. For me, it's, oh, in what ways, what do we have in common? Oh, you're from this country. Are you from India? And oh, okay, yo, this is what y'all believe. Okay, well, I'm from Nigeria. And like, all right, there's a lot we can align at. Yeah, we're different. We're all different. That's easy. That's easy
That's
to figure
okay.
out. Yeah, that's okay. Right. Okay. But if we realize more of the ways that we can align, that's how we establish diplomatic solutions in our communities and in our everyday lives. So I think that that's one of the most valuable things that I learned, just like appreciating the differences, but also being able to find the similarities.
I think the majority of us, we have more things in common than we have differences. And I didn't realize that it was important to pay attention to those things until later in life, because you kind of are, I guess, depending on where you're from, kind of born into your group, whether it's your spiritual or religious group or your ethnic group or what have you, whatever beliefs, even political groups, you're in a group. And until you start to travel or be intentional about meeting people, I say try to meet someone that doesn't look, live, or love like you, right? And that is the best way to expand yourself. And I saw this quote one time and it stuck with me forever. It said, a life without traveling is like only reading the first chapter of a book. There's no way to get the whole story. Or it was something to that effect, but it blew my mind. And I was like, wow. So I've been lucky enough to be able to go a few different places, right? I've been able to travel out of the country 2 or 3 times, and to different states here. I haven't been a lot of places. To me, I haven't been a lot of places, but really just seeing how someone else lives or seeing how someone else chooses to worship or whatever before the election in 2016. And me, I didn't know too much about the in-depth parts of the different candidates. But all I knew was the same rhetoric that you hear on TV, like, this person is bad, this person is bad, this is the political affiliation, this is the political affiliation. But then I sat down one day and I had a conversation with a Donald Trump supporter. And it blew my mind because, one, I know him for years. And it was a white guy, wealthy white family, but known him for years through a friend. And it was just interesting without making any prejudgment of, oh, you're a Donald Trump supporter, so, oh, you're a racist, or, oh, you're this, or, oh, you're that. It was just like, okay, why? And I think I've naturally been inquisitive my whole life, and I'll ask why. I ask questions before I tell you to do something, like, do you think this will be beneficial if you do it, But just sitting down and hearing the reasons why broadened my perspective to the point where I understand now the importance of not being a single issue voter. And this was part of the conversation I was having with my friend yesterday, where a lot of people in our community, and not everybody, but a lot of us, kind of become this single issue type voter where we see maybe racism or injustice of some kind. And that's it. We don't really understand estate taxes and mortgage, and we don't understand that people have to worry about their family and things like that. So it's just like, oh, you really do have all these other things on your list that you care about, like.
Hey, can I, I'm sorry, I need to grab my charger real quick.
Go ahead. I saw you looking around. I was like, his computer better not die.
All right.
Better not die.
All right. So we're good now.
You good?
I think that's important too. Listening to people that don't, think like you or or even agree with you. I mean, that's the only way to kind of really grow and to understand where we're at. So
Thanks.
I think one thing I appreciate is that I've learned how to it's not going to sound good, but I've learned how to judge people, right?
That does
Like,
sound good. I understand that. I understand.
okay, yeah. And so, before, when I was all maybe more high and mighty in my life, I would like judge people based on what I think that they're supposed to be doing. It's weird. One day I was like, "That's weird. Why would I do it?" How do you determine what, who am I to determine what somebody else should be doing? And then I realized that it's probably more valuable to judge people based on what they think that they're trying to do. And it helped me a lot, especially with dealing with like this Trump stuff and blah 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 blah. And I ain't waste the past 4 years calling him names because
Because why?
one, I got better stuff to do in my life.
Yeah.
And then two, I looked at him and I was like, he doesn't seem to be trying to be the best president in the world. Why hold him to that standard? You know, and it helps, man. It helps me deal with a lot. I've had a lot less pain and
Stress.
anxiety because I ain't holding him to that standard. He's just like, he's not trying to do that. And one day I was like, well, what does it seem like he's trying to do? And I was like, what if he was trying to be the most memorable president ever? How about judging how about judging him by those standards? And it started to look a whole lot different. And
That is a very interesting perspective.
yeah, and right. And I was just like, every day I'm just noticing how he just sends a tweet and
Like,
everybody's
oh, that's memorable.
yeah, it's just like, say what you want. He's gonna be remembered. Like if that was his goal, he's doing a damn good job at
Nobody's going to forget 2020.
nobody. Nobody. We started off with almost in World War III. I went on a retreat for the end of the year. So I was away from society and technology. And then I came out, it was like January 2nd or 3rd. And I was like, what? It's about to be World War III? Oh gosh.
All the hype.
And but it's helpful for other things, even with people that I don't agree with. I mean, that's an extreme example, but like even with just like people that we don't agree with, like, all right, it's not based on what I think that they should be doing. It shouldn't even be like that. So I think that for a lot of us, hopefully, that we can like stop worrying about trying to see people from your point of view and just see people
Yeah.
as they are.
I think that's helpful when you think about not getting distracted and kind of staying focused on what your goal is or your plan or your vision, not just for yourself, but for your community, for your
Right.
family. And kind of what you said, I've made it a point to judge the intentions plus the action.
Right.
Because, okay, so we had a little technical thing going, but we're back.
We're back.
But yeah, just I've learned to judge people based on their intentions and their actions and kind of put things in perspective. It really does help. So outside of, well, along with those things, I know, did you do a rite of passage? Can you tell me about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that's important. That's key. So yeah, I enrolled myself in an adult rites of passage program about 2000 was that 2018 for that year, and that was an important part. And I think that's an important part of culture and society overall. Is and for those that don't know, a rites of passage program usually occurs when a child reaches a point in life and when they're in transition to adulthood and they learn the necessary things that are appropriate for them to thrive and excel in whatever culture it is. And so I guess for most people, one of the most common forms of rites of passage that we're familiar with is a bar mitzvah, right? And so myself, I went through one. It was a Native American and African spirituality based program where it's not really a religious thing, but it's a program that encourages you to grow through yourself, for yourself, to find whatever spiritual practice it is that you believe. So, you know, if you're Christian, get deep, dive deeper into your Christianity, or your walk with Islam or Buddhism or Baha'i,
Right.
whatever it is that you do, the program encourages it. So it's like a 9-month program, and the different pieces in that program really helped me to grow exponentially, spiritually, you know, mentally, and even physically.
How
So
long
that's
was
actually
it?
it was 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and technically for me, it's still going. You know, it's still going. Like I realize, like I've accepted the fact that in my life I'm going to constantly reinitiate myself into that program year after year. It's continued growth, because my spiritual development is not, you can't put it in a 9-month time frame.
Right.
And so the importance of like continuously initiating myself, because life will do it anyway, but continuously initiating myself into modalities and programs that will help me grow and heal. So that was kind of more recently, and I'm actually still working with the program to initiate other men through the process.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at now, because it's really important to us. There's a women's side of the program too, which is way more developed, which has been way more, you know, was happening a lot longer. So we're still in our infancy stages and our baby phases, but I realized
Wow.
how important it is for men to have something like this, and for men to go through something like this, because we like to say, a lot of us like to say that we're grown ass men, but really, who told you that? You know, what have you done? Really, all right, you popped out some kids and whatever, you I don't know, you got a
Yeah.
job, you know, like really though, really the community would tell you that you're a grown ass man, but we don't necessarily have the culture in place to really establish that, to really say that with any form of authority. Now there are these communities out here who do have different forms of rites of passage. A lot of them are particular to specific um, religious and spiritual affiliations. But the one I went through, the Healing Lodge of Two Shields, it's not really particular to any specific religious belief.
I think that is one of the most important parts of trying to find a solution, is becoming intentional about personal development.
Mm,
And I don't like to say that with any slight, because there's this idea that if you talk about personal responsibility or personal development, you're blaming everything on the quote unquote victim or the person. I
mm,
understand that there are things in place, set up like barriers, right? Hurdles, barriers, walls, what have you. I am just of the persuasion that none of that matters. And I think maybe
mm,
it's partly because I was an athlete, and because I spent so much time as a leader in various arenas, from school to athletics to debate and things like that. And so, what you get taught from a leadership position, and like even being on SGA and things like that, what you get taught from a leadership position is that nothing else matters. Your excuses don't matter. The hurdles don't matter. Here's the task. You have to accomplish it. How will you get it done? And there is no room at the end to say, well, this happened, or this wasn't right, or we didn't have enough time, or whatever, what have you, right? You just have
yeah,
to
yeah,
do it. And I
right.
think that personal development piece, even just putting yourself in a position where, it's crazy, because now 9 months sounds like a long time to so many people. So just even having the discipline to say, I'm going to stay committed to something for 9 months, that's not instant results, right? And then even the
No,
result at the end is not some special award or accolade or
right,
monetary reward,
right.
right? So it's just like,
Mm.
that is amazing. I love the fact that you did that. Can you tell me about what were some of like the main, if you can talk about it, some of the main tenets of the program that you had to focus on or research, or like, how did that
Yeah,
go?
so like there's 9 months, and each month is a different module. And forgive me for not having them all off the
No,
top
that's
of my
fine.
head. But again, for the men's legacy rites of passage program, right? It's the first the first thing out the gate, the first module is we talk about brotherhood and manhood. What does that idea look like? What does it mean to be a brother? What does it mean to be a man? How do we hold ourselves accountable? Looking into and study of other groups of men, and what have they done? How have they organized themselves, right? And so then we get into principles. What are your principles? What are your moral codes? And then looking into that, then we go into this idea of opening up to yourself, right? And you start to look at, what are these things that we say that we believe? Do I say I believe in God? Like, okay, what is God? What is Christianity? What is prayer? What is ritual? You start to really look at these things, really look at them, because we say them all the time easily. Oh yeah, I believe this, I believe that. We say it all the time very easily. What does that exactly mean, right? So you start opening up to yourself. What are these things that you say you believe, and what do you mean by them? And then really asking yourself. Then you're kind of opening up. Then you're looking into the womb of your mind. We call one of our modules the womb of my mind, and the womb being the birthplace of thought, and the birthplace of beliefs, right? And all this happens in the mind. So we're looking into what exactly is happening into your mind. We're exploring mental health, looking at trauma. We're looking at, just whatever's going on. How do you birth your thoughts? What are you saying? What do you believe when you say these things? Really taking a deep dive into that. And, there's even an encouragement for getting mental health support in that module, right? And actually, I've always been an advocate and a believer in counseling, and I've been counseled before, but in this program, it was highly recommended, suggested, almost directed to enroll yourself in some form of counseling. So
Wow.
there was that, yeah, and I did that, and actually, even though the program ended in 2018, I'm still in counseling, just as more of a preventative measure. Like I haven't been diagnosed with anything, and I don't think people should feel like they got to be diagnosed to go. Just
Yeah.
go talk to somebody. Yeah, just go talk to somebody.
There's so much taboo around it.
Yeah, there is. And I even remember being in the program, being the one of my fellow brothers to really support that. I was like, nah, man, we need to go, because I know we walking around and we're all one decision away from ruining the rest of our lives. So if talking to somebody could help, go do that. It's not the end all be all, but it's a good tool, and I'm really thankful for that. Then we also go into food and nutrition, temple mastery, as we call it. The body's a temple, and mastering that temple. So we focus on diet and fasting and exercise and treating the body well. Then we go into masculine essence, what it means to be a man. What are our practices around sex, and what are our rituals around sex, and how we engage, with ourselves intimately, which is, we don't talk about that a lot as men. How to engage with yourself intimately, and then what that looks like to engage with other people, intimately and sexually. Then we go into life mapping. It's just kind of like mapping out your life and really putting these things forward that we've developed over time, whatever the rituals that you are. We talk to elders and subject matter experts to kind of help us develop these different tools. And so putting
Wow.
all these, exactly right. It's like a whole lot that happens, a lot of work. And so we put all these tools together towards the end into what's been called a life map. And we get a system for how to put the pieces in your life together in a way that is centered around what you believe that your purpose is. Again,
Mm.
this is mostly, in the program we put out a lot for them to do, but it's really self-guided. And as our director states it, this is the equivalent of getting a PhD in yourself. And that's kind of how it works, because you got the answers individually. Like, it doesn't come from outside, it
It's in
comes
you.
from within. Yeah, it's inside. So, we have like a curriculum, but really it's like what you put into yourself will determine what you get out of the program. And so that takes us all the way through kind of graduation, and we have, closing ceremony and vision quest and all that stuff. So that's those are the essential components of the program in a
That is
nutshell.
powerful. That is so powerful. And
Absolutely.
I think it's amazing because knowing yourself, like ancient Kemet,
Yeah.
over the temple doors, man, know thyself. And it's easy to take that for granted. Like, yeah, I know me, but then we hold on to these things that really have nothing to do with us. Like we'll say, oh yeah, I've always been this way, or I'm just angry, or I have this, or I have that, and or I have anxiety. And we take on
Hmm.
things that really have nothing to do with us because
Right.
it's been so closely tied to us. And then kind of like you said, you will create that reality for yourself. It'll be like this self-fulfilling prophecy, like you'll just always have bad luck, or you'll just always be
Right.
broke, or
Right. Oh, that's
always be in toxic relationships because like, oh
yeah.
well, when I was younger I used to say just my luck, but in a very
Right.
pessimistic way. And I had to
Right.
learn how to not only be intentional with my
Hmm.
words, but be intentional with my thoughts and how
Hmm.
I treated myself, and not really
Hmm.
understanding. I like that concept of the womb being the
Hmm.
in your mind being the birthplace
Hmm.
of essentially everything, your entire
Right.
reality. I watched this TED
Right.
talk, and there was a guy that talked about how we hallucinate our reality. And without
Woo.
getting too deep into it, it's not super deep like the Matrix type conversation,
Yeah.
but literally he talked about how our brains are wired to make meaning out of certain images, and how it finds things that we want to see, not necessarily
Yeah.
what's there. It was powerful.
Yeah.
And just understanding that part of that comes from you. The biggest part comes from you. You have the power to create what you
Hmm.
want to see, and
Hmm.
someone taking you through a process, I guess, not only to be intentional, but to be more aware,
Oh
of
yeah.
what you're putting in your body, what's coming out of your body, how are you
Yeah.
interacting with the world. Like, that's powerful.
It is, and what that does though, and I've always had a pretty a decent, nobody's perfect, but I've always had a decent sense of like accountability. But this joint put me through the roof, and my sense of self accountability it's offensive. I ain't even gonna lie, it's offensive to some people because the level at which I'm prepared to deal with is just brutal, and it really is, because when you start there, when you really, really dig through these things, even another thing that we go through is even how much of yourself comes from your family,
Mm,
right? Like as a family interview, and like, what is your family? What is they like that stuff too? All of that stuff, like all of that, like what is that? Where is everything? Because when you really look at all this stuff, take it in and break down what you need to break down, get rid of what you need to get rid of, but also like being able to be accountable for that. And so that's why with solutions, I struggled like to say like, all right, what are the solutions? I don't know yet. I don't know. I got some ideas, but like really focusing on the self, right? No, like you said, like know thyself is not light. It's not a light thing at all. And then to know thyself in relation to the rest of the world around you, then is another process, and then to put yourself, your spiritual purpose at the top of all that should dictate how you want to move through this life. And hopefully if you do it right, things will have to change, and I'm still working on changing a lot of things in myself. That's why I'm continuously gonna say, yo, I'm in it. I'm still in it. I graduated, but I ain't finished.
right.
You
You're
know,
never finished. You're never
never
finished.
finished, right? And so we like to think that we speak of things, right, in such a terminal way. Even to say, not to pick on nobody, but even to say the phrase woke it's terminal. Like how do you? But I think of awakening. Awakening is a process, and it's continuously happening. Awakening. I'm
Yeah.
continuously awakening to myself. to be woke is a terminal thing. And like, I mean, I know we don't say it with such depth, but that's me. You know, these
That's
words
kind
are
of the problem too, because
yeah.
I hate the term woke now in so many ways. I remember the very first time I heard woke, it was in an Erykah Badu song. I don't know
Yeah,
if it
I
was
remember that
The
joint.
Healer or Master
Nah,
Teacher
it
or
was
one of
that
those.
same album. Yeah, it was that album
But
though.
it was, the whole point was, one, waking up to yourself and waking up to these deeper spiritual truths. Like,
Yeah,
what I think it was Master Teacher, probably like, what if there was no more niggas, only master teachers or something? I
yeah.
stay woke.
I stay woke.
And
Yeah.
then now it got co-opted to mean this like political, like if you're aware of politics or aware of racism, or if you're aware of oppression. And it's like, how very small, you know? And I get
Yeah.
it. People need their cliche things to catch on, but
Catchphrases and
it was powerful when I first heard it and learned about enlightenment and these different ways you can go deeper within yourself. It was like waking up to really, you don't really see race the same way, and you don't see people the
right.
same way. You see them on this much more spiritual
Mm-hmm.
level, and it's just like, wow, we're connected. Wow, we're one. Everybody has their individual personality, and you know, it's like, I look at it like it's a puzzle, and
Right.
you can't just have one piece. I mean,
Right.
there's so many pieces, and that makes the big picture.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But
woke.
how yeah, I know. But and see and this is where I also struggle with dealing with people because, well, one, I'm a lyricist. So like I'm into words. Like I
Me
like
too.
words and like wordplay. But then also too is this like I'm also intentional about the things that come out of my mouth. Like
Me
I don't
too.
just say randomness and like I'm accountable for everything that comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So people will be like, they'll say something and I'll be like, wait, are you talking about this? And be like, well, no,
People
not really.
hate it when I ask them. They're like, you're too technical.
Yeah, right,
It
exactly,
matters.
right.
It
No,
matters.
it fucking matters. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I like to be clear. Like, I like to know
Right.
what we're talking about because I don't
Right.
want you to be talking about something, but I heard the word and I took it somewhere else, and then we're not on the same page. So
Right.
like that clarity in words and what we're speaking, which is really funny, right? Because we have to do this in English. It's so weird, right? I don't really speak any other languages, but from my sense, it's like there's different languages. There's languages to whereas you can speak more abstractly and be way more clear, you know, but because of like this English language, the darn constraints of this language, we have to be so technical because it's just kind of the way that
It
it's
can go
spoken.
all the way left.
Yeah, and it can go all the way, and then we have all these things like homonyms and like just trick words and just tricky stuff with the language. So I'd be like, now we got to get this clear, but people don't have to be clear, which is the difficult thing. Like people can say like half of a sentence and then follow it up with "nah, I mean," and I'd be like, nah, I don't. You didn't even utter a complete thought.
Right. Or even sometimes there's the other side of that, to where you don't have to say everything. And I know exactly what you mean in some
Right.
situations. Like that is the power of language, written or spoken, or bodily language, you know. It's crazy. Like you can really understand, and just vibrations. I go a lot off of energy and how I feel. I've learned to pay attention to my gut and how I feel, especially with dealing with people out in the world. I really just want certain energy around me. I want really good energy around me, especially because in my type of work, I'm around people who are hurting, who are struggling, who really are not thinking clearly. And I'm having to constantly pour out. And I don't mind, but I make very certain that when I'm around my group of friends, that I'm around people that can pour into me, is good energy. It's not further adding to the stress. And even friends that are recognized, like, hey, you need to go be by yourself. Like, you need to take some time. You know what I mean? Like, have you decompressed? I was heavy. Like, you need to go meditate, actually, because people know I'm very into like meditation and sitting at my altar and things like that. Like taking that time.
Mm-hmm. No, that's important. Yeah, I mean, see, those are the solutions. Sit, yo, I used to play this game with my children. They've gotten older and grown. The jokes, the gig is up, but I called it STFU, right? Mm, So it was so when when they were really small, it was like I was like, yeah, it means sit there and find yourself, right? And so,
That's
but
hilarious.
I know this is this play. I was like, all right, so we just gonna sit and be quiet. That's it. That's what a lot of us need to do. And as adults, just shut the fuck up for a few
Yeah.
minutes a day. Like you don't have like it'll develop into meditation. Some people are like, yeah, I like meditate. Like, yo, meditation is real deep. And it's a real serious practice. It's not something that maybe, at least for me, let me just speak for myself. It's not something that I just woke up one day and I was like, oh, I'm like this meditator.
Not at all. It takes
Right.
forever.
It takes forever. Like I just realized that for years I thought I was meditating. Nah,
Hey, you
I
were?
wasn't. I was just,
That's real.
yeah, I was just shutting the fuck up for a few minutes a day. Like, and that was what I was doing. Like, then meditation then takes you even further, right? Meditation then takes you even further into a creation space, and into a manipulation space where then you can control the thoughts that are coming in and out of your brain. Like that whole thing, right? You kind of understand what I'm saying. But it's like, yeah, but the first you just gotta learn how to sit down and shut up. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Turn off the TV, turn off the phone, turn off the radio, turn off this, turn off that, turn off everything, turn off it, take off Bluetooth, and then all these, even Bluetooth. I hate this. Raise extra
You see, I got my
radioactivity.
cord.
Yeah,
I
I
have my
know.
headless ones, but I mean, my wireless ones, but still, I just feel
Yeah,
like
the
this is
cord.
killing my brain.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That's how I
So
be
I mean,
thinking.
yeah. So that I think those things are like more connected to solutions than any policy that I can make up in my head. Just sit down, shut up for a few minutes. That's what I would say.
I get it. I think one of my solutions that I'm focused on, I'm actually developing a product. It's almost done. Um, but I spent a lot of years doing my own research into every kind of subject imaginable, from nutrition to exercise to wealth
Mhm.
creation to growth to everything, just spiritual energy to vibrations to things like
Mhm.
Fibonacci sequences and
Mhm.
things like that, and try to get a more well-rounded understanding of success and
Yeah.
wealth in different ways, to where I learn so much. But the reality is, in the groups that I'm in, I really can't be like, here, go read these books and it'll take you like 4 or 5 years, but you can do it. Just get on the path. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I need a way to give away the game. Right. So it's
Mm.
just, how can I give away the game? And it really does put you in a place to focus on self, because I think part of even what you're saying, you're not saying it, but what you're saying is, you can't give somebody a solution. You can't give someone the answer. The reality
Yeah.
is the answers are in you. But what I've learned is that one of the most valuable things that I've ever learned is learning how to ask the right questions.
Mm.
Sometimes you don't even know. You're so busy looking for an answer to this question and an answer to this question. And then it's like, I didn't even know what question to ask. Like, I never even thought of that question. And so it's kind of like we spend a lot of time asking the wrong questions. It's like, how can I get money? How can I do
Mm.
this? How can I start a business? And that's fine, cool, and great. That's a starting place. But then when you realize you're at level 0, when you're asking those questions and there's like 100 more levels to go, it's like, I wouldn't even have known to ask that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I
Right.
kind of took that information and packaged it in a way that it could be explorative and intriguing enough to make you want to go and ask your own questions. I can't talk too
Mm.
much about it yet, but it's
Right. Right.
so super dope. And it came from a place of literally just creating a practice over the last 5 or 6 years of learning how to go in my room, sit down, and just shut up. Kind of like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what can happen when you just go be by yourself. And you just
Man,
shut
yeah.
up.
All type of all type of solutions just be coming to you. You be like, oh,
Everything.
right. Yeah.
Everything.
That's
So,
powerful.
so on this journey, what are some of the biggest things from when you can remember, however long, whenever, the biggest things that you feel like you've had to overcome?
Mm. Yeah. I would say one of the biggest things was like being thrown into fatherhood at a relatively young age and kind of dealing with that. And then not even in the nuclear family fatherhood, so to speak, situation.
Right.
That was huge because I never wanted to be a baby daddy. That was really because I came from a nuclear family. I both my parents they live with me now, you know, and like I'm blessed to have them. So I think that was a huge challenge amidst being in school and you know at that age, what was I 21? I mean, you know, it was
The
trying to figure
kids.
out yeah, I was trying to figure out who I was and what I am and yeah, but then now I'm responsible for another life. Oh, oh I'm
How?
how like, I'm still trying to figure out how, you know. Um, so that was a huge challenge. It's also like the greatest gift, you know, the huge biggest challenge that I've ever had to deal with in my life, and then also the greatest gift. And and it's grown me up. You know, it's grown me up so much, and figuring out. You know, I think that's an important part of that's been the most one of the most important parts of my journey into manhood. And I'm glad that you know I'm glad that I had to do that even at such a young age. Now I struggled because I had to do that at such a young age, but I'm also really glad that I had to do that at such a young age because it forced me to grow up, and it also forced me to want to do more for myself as a man and just for us as men in general. Especially as I see, unfortunately, I just see like a lot of dudes, otherwise good dudes, that are not invited into the process of fatherhood, of being a father, you know, and you got those bums who just don't want to do it. There's a few of them in comparison to most of the men I know, all the way across the board, from the most raggedy hood dude to the gangster dude to the corporate business dude in the suit and the most well put together men. We all want to take care of our children. And so to see that it, to see the struggles there has been just a huge challenge for me. Just witnessing other fathers, and I didn't have it really wasn't that bad for me, relatively speaking. You know, the mothers of my children have been great, have been really awesome in facilitating my participation in their lives, even though you know we're not together. So I'm blessed
Yeah.
beyond measure. I am super blessed beyond. But just witnessing other men go through that has been like just a challenge just to see other men go through it. And it's actually inspired me though to work on. I'm actually working on a book, trying to write right now, and it's actually a book kind of about relationships. Speaking of relationships and stuff and things like that, it's called "Feed Me, Fuck Me, Friend Me," and
Hey.
yeah, yeah. And so it's a really it's a fictional book about a guy who you know gets out of a really bad relationship, but he enrolls himself in counseling, and he goes into counseling, and he has all these different sessions, and over time he unravels in his head what he needs to be successful in his relationships. And you know, so it goes to feed me, fuck me, friend me, and you see that as he's talking to his counselor. And I feel like I put these pieces together from the stories that I've heard from other men, a lot of personal experiences, and just different things to come together. Because that's one of the things that I struggle with, and I feel like I see a lot of other men struggling with, is that we don't really take care of ourselves in relationships and give ourselves the things that we need, especially men. I mean, we're relatively easy, you know, not it's I don't want to minimize it, but like man, you know, you just give us like most men, if they have like 3 to 5 things on the list, it's like
They're good.
we're good, right? It's just like we're good. But then we as men, we lose some of us, like particularly quote unquote good men, we lose ourselves in relationships trying to take care of the 365 needs of our partner and which rotate on a daily basis. And then we try to figure out which one on which day is, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Because we're different.
Right. Because we are different. And so, but then we lose ourselves as men. We don't know what we want. That's the problem, more so than that we're cheaters and dirtbags and toxic and all the other negative things that we believe about men. It's just that we just don't really know the basic fundamentals of what we want. And even though I'm calling them basic, they're deep. Feed me. Yeah, we talk about we want a woman to feed us and cook for us, but like, how does she feed your mind? How does she feed your spirit? How does she feed your soul? Those are the things that we also need to focus on as well.
Right.
We all want to get fucked. That's cool, but how does she, make love to your mind? How does she make love to your spirit? Are you conscious of the ways that these things are happening and what's happening to you as a result? And because the things that you take on in your relationship ultimately affect you, and they ultimately
physically and mentally.
Physically, mentally, spiritually, the whole nine.
Yeah.
So those challenges in my life that I dealt with, been struggling with for a long time, have like kind of now helped me to figure out how to at least start to put these things together for ourselves. And that's kind of what the book is about. Shameless plug before it comes out.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's important. I do want to touch on something that you said, because there is this idea, and I knowing you and your mindset, I feel like I already know what your answer is going to be about. But there's this idea now of toxic masculinity, and I hate this term with a passion. And it's this idea that to be like an alpha male, or even just saying that term, is somehow inherently bad or toxic, right? And I think there's much to be said for making sure that you have a healthy relationship with self and others. So like, you shouldn't be beating on women, or you shouldn't be afraid to cry because it makes you a punk or things like that. But again, going back to men and women are different, I think there is a sort of, what is that? Not bravado, but just that testosterone, that energy that a man brings that I think is necessary for families, for community. Like, how do you feel about this toxic masculinity kind of idea that's going around?
No, it's a terrible phrase. It's a one-sided phrase. I prefer, I focus on just people are toxic. There's toxic people, men and women. We all can be toxic. So, I mean, to just focus on men in and of itself, it's a terrible idea. I think it's terrible. And I really despise when men feed into that. I know it sounds cool and you want to be down with the ladies, and we do. There are some toxic behaviors that we do have as men.
Sure.
Absolutely. Nobody can deny that. However, feeding this idea that manhood in and of itself is toxic, that's where it's just like we've gone too far. And so, and it's for me, I think about it a lot, is because like, I'm trying to raise a son. I don't want him to think that the fact that he's a boy or he's gonna be a man when it's like, that's toxic.
It's inherently bad.
It's inherently, no. I want him to believe that it's a positive thing, and he can have positive relationships with himself, positive relationships with other men, positive relationships with women. We all need each other. So it's getting difficult with all of these negative
terms and
and just placed on men. So I think it's silly. It's just just stop saying it. But whatever, people don't say it. But again, right, and that's kind of another impetus for the book, right? This idea, even though I got it with men in mind, I mean, the same principles applied to women, right? Like figuring out what you need in order to not be on the receiving end of someone's toxicity.
Right.
That's really ultimately what this is about. The book goes both ways. I can really only speak from the experience as a man. So
absolutely.
That's why, but women it applies to as well. The toxicity is shoot. I have been on the receiving end of toxicity from women. We ain't gonna talk about that. There are no forums or discussions for that.
No outcry.
There's no outcry. You know what I'm
Toxic
saying?
femininity.
No, man, nobody, and then nobody's gonna want to hear it. People gonna laugh at you. You gonna be a punk and you talking about that. Is real life dudes out here on the receiving end of some toxic behavior, and the sad part is that it's okay. It crushes me. It crushes me because, like, particularly when it comes to like domestic violence, you know, I was talking about it with a couple of guys. I was talking about it, you know, and I was talking about an experience, and I was like, "Yo, man, this thing happened with this woman, and she hit him, and did, and man." I was like, "It's crazy." And then like dudes was like, "Well, you know, sometimes it's just how it is." What?
Yeah.
No,
It's not
that
okay.
is not okay. That is not okay. And like I'm strongly against all forms of domestic violence, but it can't just be one way.
You can't normalize it and say it's okay because he's a guy.
Yeah, no woman, please. No woman should get into a fight with me. Please don't. It's not okay. I'm 6'4", almost 200 pounds. Let's not do that. Let's not even figure out what we don't think that I'm like a robot that you can just like beat up on me and like I'm gonna have this robotic response. I can be just as careless with my emotions as you. Like you don't got any woman. There's no woman who experiences an emotion that I can't experience.
Facts.
So you can say, oh yeah, I was mad, that's why I hit him. Well, what do you think happened when you hit him? He was mad. Like,
right.
So he's showing that restraint, or vice versa, or she's showing that restraint, and one party isn't. That's we can't normalize that behavior. We all have to be accountable. We all have to be, men have to be accountable for our toxicity, and women just as much. But we can't do it for you, you know. But
yeah,
a lot of men are prepared to do that. That's the scary part. A lot of men are prepared to just eat it. Like,
yeah. And kind of like because it makes you more of a man. Like, I don't care. I eat those. I don't care. Like, you should care though. You don't deserve abuse in any form.
In any form. And this is the thing. There's a cognitive dissonance in that, right? Because like, if like, let's say I'm in the woods and I'm with my children, and then a bear jumps out, I gotta fight the bear. Like, I'm going to fight the bear. The bear is an immediate threat. It's trying to harm me. It's trying to harm my children. I got to fight the bear. I'm prepared to fight a bear, right? So like, if a woman comes at me and she threatens me, I'm in danger, and I feel like I'm being threatened. What?
You go to fight or flight mode.
Yeah, like you go into fight or flight, and we shouldn't be putting each other in these situations. It's
unhealthy.
Extremely dangerous. It's extremely unhealthy, and it's dangerous, and it scares the crap out of me. So, and I could be man and da 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 da, but like, nah, man, I don't want to fight nobody. I don't want to fight anybody.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to fight anybody. But like, I definitely don't want to be in no tussle match with no woman. Now, and then I've seen some cases, and I'm not an advocate for violence at all, but like, I respect if a woman, she thinks that she wants to do it and she's willing to just fight, and then they just, whatever happens and it's over. Hey, right, I ain't for it, but okay, cool. But then if you want to start a fight and then call the cops in the middle of it, then we got issues. Then we call the cops, and then the cops come to the scene, then somebody gets shot. See,
it's too much of a bad cycle.
It's too much of a mess, right? But even though I don't condone violence, I mean, you know, physicality can be a way. It is a way for all natural beings on this earth to handle their solutions. So like when we were doing brother to brother back in the day, you know, we used to have boxing gloves. And we would let the boys box. You got an issue, you talking smack with somebody, while the joning, talking smack, it got out of control, somebody got their feelings hurt. Hey, you want to put on the gloves? All right, cool.
That's a guy thing. That is completely a guy thing. But that's okay. Like, I have clients that are young and they fight and they get in trouble at school for being too aggressive. And I'm like, they're boys. They don't communicate the same way as women. They have to let certain things out a different way. And that's okay.
That's okay. But just having controlled environments.
Right.
Things.
Don't just let it get buck wild.
right. Don't let it get bugged with it, and then that's toxic, right? But you know, I remember I did that. I'm about to tell on myself. In a program in the school, one time we went to one of the middle schools. I ain't gonna say which one, but we was in Baltimore. Yeah, man, we had a curriculum that we were facilitating, but man, we would take gloves in there every once in a while, and we would close the door. You know, Baltimore City schools.
A whole different, yeah.
Was different than the schools I came to. Man, we would just close the door, you know, and some we just let them put on and just get it out. Because you're not gonna be able to just come into a room and just teach from a book every day.
You
It's
can't.
not even, you can't. It's just not
Cannot.
even feasible. So, you know, learning how, again, not calling things inherently good or bad, you know, toxic or whatever. I think that's a practice that we should adopt. I don't want to be calling people toxic. I got a lot of reasons to, you know, some people, but it's not based on gender.
Facts. So when is this book coming out? When can we
Yeah,
expect?
you know what?
Do we have a date?
I want to. No, not a specific date. I gotta finish writing it. But this time next year, like for
Don't let
full
it sit on
complete.
the shelf. Don't let it sit on the shelf and be something that you're planning to do or you got to get to it.
No, I did. It's been sitting on the shelf since 2013. No, so now I'm fully in the writing. I'm 6 chapters in, so I'm starting to look for.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm in it. I'm in it. So I'm starting to look for editors and things of that nature, just to get it, you know, get it looking right for the people.
yeah,
So
that's what's up. I
this
did the
time,
same thing. I let something sit on the shelf for like a year and a half, and I shouldn't have. I knew it was necessary, but you know, life happens and we start making excuses. And I was like, nope,
you know,
Ashley, you got to get this done. It's in you. You don't want to leave this earth with something still in you.
no bull. That's the motive. That's the motivation.
That's what's up. Man, well, it was so good talking to you. Before we leave, I want you to give me a few of the things, whatever they are, whether they were mentors, quotes, books, because this is the Alkemst podcast. It's all about the art of transformation and learning how to take yourself from level to where ultimately we're always striving to become the greatest version of ourselves, whatever that looks like, right? And so we're surrounded by people who often with a lot of validity, run into hurdles. But the point of this podcast is to give people exposure to people who have been able to become greater, kind of like with your Rites of Passage program and then that self-development and things like that. So what are some of the tools that you used on the journey? What are some things that were poured into you or taught to you, books you read, you know, things like that on the journey to help your mindset really get to that place of focusing on self-development, doing that deep work, and then ultimately striving for the greatest version of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say two books that were really impactful to me. One is by Haki Madhubuti. It's called Tough Notes: A Healing Call for African American Boys. That was a really powerful book with different passages and writings from Brother Haki Madhubuti. Just that idea of like, just healing and understanding what we're going through and really putting it into a perspective that will help us move forward.
Tough Notes.
Tough Notes. And then The Community of Self by Naeem Akbar. That joint, I love that joint. I try to read it, you know, once a year if I can. So that's a book that talks about the different aspects of self and like how they show up and what they look like when they're healthy and what they look like when they're imbalanced. And that was a powerful book. Really, actually, just a lot of books by Naeem Akbar. Really, I think he also wrote Visions for Black Men. That just shaped me.
Wow, I haven't heard of either of those authors, so I'm going to definitely check them out.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think you'll dig them too. And then a quote that I try to live by is I don't know who said it, but it's just stuck with me. It says, "If you want your life to change, you have to change your life." And so whenever I get into a rut, that's kind of what I look forward to doing. It's like, all right, I want something to change. All right, let me change something. Like, this needs to happen. Maybe this, jump into this program or support that, or yeah. And then people, I'm just inspired by, like, I'm just inspired by a lot. I think maybe I'm easily inspirable. So I just look around. My big brother Munir Bahar and the Core Health Institute is a huge inspiration to me.
Good dude.
Just watching, very good brother, man, and just watching him and being a part of his journey and seeing his trials and tribulations and how he still maintains is such an inspiration to me. And I encourage your listeners just to check it out, the Core Health Institute. Corecommunity.com and
COR.
Yeah, COR, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, COR. And so I think those are some of the biggest inspirations that I have in my life, and hopefully, like, those things can be of value to others. So thanks for letting me share.
For sure. So that's what you have coming up. Do you want to plug your things, where people can find you? If it's music, book, whatever you're doing, plug all your things so people can know how to get in contact with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. So yeah, Instagram, I'll be on the gram, at Osa The Healer, OSA The Healer, spelled, correctly.
Osa The Healer.
And then everything else too. Yeah, my website, osathehealer.com. So yeah, just check me out, and get in touch, and share some of your inspirations with me. I'd love to hear it. And that's
awesome. All right. So one last thing that I like to ask my guests before they leave, if you could say something to, yourself or someone that's like you 15 years ago, or 15 years younger than you, someone that's 15 years younger than you, like a 20-year-old or a 15-year-old maybe, what would you say to them? Because a lot of us, we say, if only I knew then what I know now. So the idea is to share with somebody some type of wisdom that you've gained on this journey that, man, if I knew that then, I could have made, better decisions in some type of way, or this really helped me, So what would you share with the people before you go?
Oh man, that's powerful. Just the question is powerful. I would say that whatever decision that you're faced with, or that you're looking to make, if you yourself can see yourself living with the consequences of that decision, then do it by any means necessary. No matter what anybody thinks around you, no matter what anybody tries to tell you, if you know in your heart that you could live with the consequences 10 years from now, 15 years from now, then by all means pursue what you have in your heart, and don't let anybody dissuade you, because everybody will try.
That's what's up. Osa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
I know, me too. We was rapping for a minute. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ashley. For sure.
Yeah. So hopefully we could do this again. So
all
take
right.
care and keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
All right. Peace.
Peace.